What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbein, joined by my guys, Nick Martin and Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. Yesterday, Mike Tomlin might have broke the internet a little bit as he said there's a big change coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That big change, we'll dive into it and whether or not it's really that big or not, our thoughts on Tomlin's press conference, plus Kenny Pickett might return just a week after injuring his knee against the Houston Texans. What do we expect from the second-year quarterback? And at this point, is it even a big deal if Kenny Pickett is out there or not? And two rookies get the start for the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 5 against the Baltimore Ravens. Some big names to watch. It is a beautiful day in the Burgh. I went for a nice early walk this morning, and it was just a perfect amount of crisp. How we doing, my friends?
I'm doing well. Like you said, we're on the verge of actually, we got through fake fall.
Yes.
We got back to 80 degrees, and now we're almost back to real fall. So I'm in a good mood.
Nick, how you feeling, my friend?
Oh man, the weather's feeling great down here in North Carolina, and I'm just ready to talk some ball right now.
Talk some ball. Do you guys get fall down there? Is fall a thing in the South?
I'd say fall kind of starts closer to like October and November than anything else, and then It's like right around like late December where winter starts to like kind of become a thing, but mainly around February when winter starts to really show itself.
February. Yeah, that sounds like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh winter starts about December 1st. Anywhere between November 2nd and December 1st, ends anywhere around, March
Mid-April.
to July. Yeah, somewhere in there. Good times. Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, everybody knows what happened Sunday. Blowout loss to the Houston Texans. Mike Tomlin takes the podium after the game. He says, hell yeah, we're going to make some changes. Things need to happen. They will not put the same product on the field in Week 5 against the Baltimore Ravens. Everybody's anticipating what this big change could possibly be. He takes the podium on Tuesday. He's asked, hey, what's the change? What changes will come? He says physicality. I knew right away it needed to be physicality. Alluded to the fact that they will change their practice attire and add some padded practices early in the week. And I would anticipate that's today. And hopefully that will improve this football team. When asked about the coaching, he said, yeah, it wasn't good enough, but really redirected the question 3 or 4 times to put the blame on physicality, the fact that the players are not executing, and that Kenny Pickett has struggled. Well, seems like Matt Canada's off the hook. You guys heard it yesterday. Nick, let's start with you. Your thoughts on Mike Tomlin dropping a big change bomb there. Practice attire is going to fix the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I genuinely just don't understand that whole idea of just padded practices is going to change this offensive philosophy at all.
Nope.
When the fact that play design and sequencing is consistently just awful with this team, and it makes it really hard on Kenny Pickett, and also Kenny Pickett compounds the issue, and it ends up worse than normal. The only reason I could see padded practices being somewhat of a benefit is because the offensive line is lacking a little bit in like nastiness up front.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily think they had a terrible day against the Texans, but definitely could use like more like nastiness up front, just more like pancake blocks, just setting a tone in that regard, because you got to set a tone in the run game. And a lot of times Najee is just trying to create on his own. That said, defensively, the corners absolutely need to be more physical because they are getting gashed really badly on the outside runs. So much so that teams are just now targeting them at this point. And we saw guys like Robert Woods, like some of the best blocking receivers in the league, just absolutely take it to them. So I can see a benefit of padded practices, but it's not going to fix the elephant in the room. We know what the elephant in the room is. It's Matt Canada. Yes. It's how Kenny Pickett's played. It's just something has to change there.
Yep, I agree. Steven, what were your thoughts when you were sitting there listening to Tomlin yesterday?
I thought he was messing with us. I thought he was messing with us. I design the play of Kenny Pickett. Like you're not. I don't know if pads are going to help Kenny Pickett, get any better over the week, like make better decisions, see more open receivers, things like that. That's I don't see how this fixes that problem immediately and gives them any kind of boost going into this Ravens game. I feel like it is dodging the main problem again by addressing something that is a problem. Like you said, I won't deny that, but again, there is a much bigger problem that we are not talking about.
Yeah, it's as obvious, it's as clear as day. What I took away from yesterday, listening to Mike Tomlin deflect some Matt Canada questions and put the blame on the execution of the players and the physicality of the players, is he has acknowledged where the outside noise sits. He acknowledges where the fans are. He acknowledges where the media is. He acknowledges that everybody outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers facility, and probably even some within it, understand where the problem is, and he has to do his best to deflect it. It's now like a fight or flight situation, and he is fighting as hard as possible to keep everybody calm, and the best way to go about that is to just not acknowledge it. I think that's what I took. Like, I was listening there and I was just thinking, Mike Tomlin is doing this on purpose. He fully understands what everybody wants him to say, how much everybody dislikes Matt Canada at this point, and how much everybody is screaming and begging for him to make a change, and he can no longer defend it. He could just go around it and ignore it and try to limit it. I mean, he started his press conference with a 16-minute opener, and in that opener didn't mention the coaching one time. He did not mention the play calling once. He just constantly talked about the players and how the players are not doing enough. He's the only coach in the NFL that will put the blame on the guys on the field instead of his coaching staff. And that is as concerning as it gets, but he is, in my opinion, he's doing this intentionally. In my opinion, he knows what the issue is. He knows what everybody wants him to say. He knows how much everybody wants Matt Canada fired. He knows what the outside noise is, and he has run out of ways to defend it. So he just has to avoid it as much as humanly possible. And I think it's an issue. Is this the first time? I mean, at this point, in my experience, it is. I've walked outside taking the trash out, and neighbors have stopped me to talk to me and tell me how this is the first time they're giving up on Mike Tomlin. I've had people come up to me in the gym in the last 2 days and tell me that this is the first time that they will no longer watch the Pittsburgh Steelers because of Mike Tomlin, and they believe Mike Tomlin's time is done and he's washed. Social media is exploding right now in Mike Tomlin criticism. Is this the first time? Like, is this the lowest point Mike Tomlin has ever hit in his career because of what he's trying to do with Matt Canada? Nick, I think this is a good question for you. You've been a lifelong Steelers fan. Is this the lowest point you've seen when it comes to the fan base and their thoughts on the head coach?
I would say so, because this is getting to the point of just absolute insanity with trying the same things over and over again with this offense, but more so, like, I don't quite know if Tomlin is trying to give the media something to bite on, and
I don't think they are.
I feel like he is just trying to deflect at this point.
Yes.
And not because he doesn't see the problem. He just has to deflect at that point, because we saw similar things a little bit with John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson last year, and he constantly was just deflecting about that whole situation, and then eventually they ended up having to get rid of their offensive coordinator to try and appease Lamar to bring him back, and then bringing all these receivers in, stuff like that, like, was a major change. And it was, Harbaugh was on the hot seat. He's one of one of the few Super Bowl winning coaches in the league right now. And I think Tomlin is going to feel some of that same pressure because of what's going on with Canada. And the fact is, they need to hire, if they're going to hire someone from outside the organization, well, first off, they have to do it.
Yeah.
And also, like, they have to look at the best offenses in the league. Miami, go to like San Francisco. Like, it's the Shanahan tree, Sean McVay and what he's done, Shane Waldron in Seattle, and his disciple Dave Canales down in Tampa Bay. Like, there's a lot of good places to look for offensive minds, for young offensive minds that are understanding how the game is changing. And right now, that's what this team needs. It needs someone that can bring life and creativity into this offense. Right now, they do not have it. And it's why everything is just looked so broken. It's not just, the offensive design that's breaking down at this point. It's Kenny Pickett. He's playing with so many bad habits right now that it's compounding all the other issues. And then you have George Pickens right now, who is 0 of 8 on contested catch opportunities this season, according to Pro Football Focus. That was his specialty. And when things like that are just not working, and then you're pointing everywhere else, there is no other culprit. It's a broken offense. Broken offense, you have to cut out the main issue for things to heal. And if it's not allowed to heal, then it's just going to persist all season.
Yeah, I agree. Steven, is this you look at Kenny Pickett, okay? Because you haven't been a lifelong Steelers fan, so you have a hard time analyzing if this is, and you're a Bill Belichick fan. You're somewhat in the same boat. Where like a head coach who had a lot of success doesn't have the same success these days. You're a Belichick defender. I've made the comment to you jokingly and definitely serious, but jokingly, of it was Brady. Brady was the reason that they were so good. It was all Brady, and you're like, no, it was not. Can you tie that to Tomlin? Can you say at some point you have to look at him and say, you are a great coach who can't seem to redo it? Do you look at Belichick that way? Do you look at Belichick as a guy who can't seem to redo it? Do you look at Tomlin in the same light?
Well, I think it's similar to Belichick in that you look at the people around him and think, okay, you've made some questionable personnel decisions, and now you can't seem to let go of them.
Yes,
and that has really doomed you. Like that has really undone a lot of the goodwill that you created when you were winning a lot. I think about adding Matt Patricia as your offensive coordinator when he had no experience as an offensive play caller, and you just thought, this will work. And if not, Joe Judge will do it too, and they'll tag team the operation as well. And they just couldn't. Eventually, they did let go. And I think they got a real offensive coordinator in there, but you just look at it, it becomes less about the actual football of it and more about the people that you attach yourselves to. And I don't know. I think at a certain point, it becomes the willingness to admit that you were wrong and that you maybe made a poor decision and move on from there for the benefit of everybody else. And whether or not you're willing to do that, I think determines whether or not you can kind of revive what you had when you were winning a lot and when you were, one of the, Tomlin's still one of the better coaches in the league, one of the more revered guys in the league, but he's going to lose that shine a little bit the longer that I think he holds on to some of these mistakes that he's made already.
Do you think that he sees Canada as a problem? Do you think that he, in his head, he sees that?
It's hard to tell because this guy obviously isn't putting out his most honest face every time that he talks to us, but he has to, right? He has to know that there's some level of a problem here. I just don't know, when you think about him, the way he might prioritize these problems, like he might think about Kenny first and then think about, physicality first, then Kenny, then, Canada could be way down on his list of things that are wrong with this team right now. But there's no way that you can't see it as a problem, period. Like, it's got to be there. I think the question is just where in kind of that hierarchy Matt Canada lands.
What's up, guys? I have super exciting news to share with you. We have merchandise from t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and nutties, and plenty of designs from Pickens to Pickett, Muth, Bleed Black and Gold, and of course, all of your All Steelers talk gear, all available at blackandgoldapparel.myspreadshop.com or on the store tab at our YouTube page. We cannot thank you guys enough. We would not be here without each and every one of you, and it feels awesome to be able to represent the AST brand and to spread that representation out to all of Steelers Nation. We know that you guys and us, we are one, and this has been one hell of a ride. Again, we cannot thank you guys enough. Check out everything at blackandgoldapparel.myspreadshop.com or on the YouTube page, or the store tab, on our YouTube page to get all your AST gear and whatever t-shirts, sweatshirts, shorts, nutties, coffee mugs that you're thinking. Again, thank you guys. Let's talk Kenny Pickett. He's going to play Sunday, or he has a chance to play Sunday. If I had to guess, he's going to play Sunday. Nick, you look at Kenny Pickett. How screwed is this kid? How in trouble is he right now? Because you just talked about his bad habits. You just talked about how he's developing all these poor tendencies. We've seen him. The digression from last year to this year is so extreme. It's crazy. And what happened in the preseason, I have no idea where it went to. How in trouble is Kenny Pickett? How quickly do you have to reverse the tide before it becomes an issue where you're Zach Wilson or you're whoever? You can name a dozen first-round quarterbacks who didn't work out. How quickly do you have to reverse the tide before that's the Pittsburgh Steelers and they're in that same boat?
Well, I can't see any plausible reason to bench Kenny Pickett this season. You have to
you got to rock with him.
You got to ride the storm, like at that point. But this next quarterback class, this next one, there's going to be upperclassmen that's going to be very deep within, and that's not even counting the underclassmen that could potentially declare. So it gives that potential quarterback class a really good floor of guys that might have some exploring to do if you're the Steelers. And I'm not saying, move on from Kenny Pickett. I'm saying give him competition and make it clear that, it's not his job. It's something he has to keep working for. And it's not that I don't think Kenny's working at it. I think he works very hard. We have to look at all the things that's wrong with him mechanically and just habit-wise, and just say to ourselves, can this be fixed? And I just don't know right now. I don't. It's very hard to say. And a lot of times, some of these quarterbacks, people give up on them a little too soon, and maybe they'll find life outside of a new system. And sometimes that's what they need, is a change of scenery. Look at Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay right now.
True.
Like past season, actually last year when he was playing with Sean McVay, he was playing his best ball in years. And now he's doing it again with a good offensive system. Like, there's definitely a path to success for Kenny. It's just that he needs offensive integrity within the coordination of it. And the fact that we just don't have it is just compounding every single issue with him, and it is making it that much worse. And I just don't know if it's fixable at this point. And I just think you have to change something at offensive coordinator. Like, the bye week is coming up. I know this is not like the first time ever that a coordinator has been fired partway through the season or this early in the season. There are definitely ways you can progress your offense. And here's the thing, even if you have some of Canada's play designs, as much as I don't like much of his offense, there's still a way you can sequence it better, and it would work out a lot better for this offense as a whole. And if let's say Mike Sullivan understands it a little bit more, that's still a net gain, and that's still something you want to work with.
Yes, I agree. My thoughts, I look at it like this, like the Steelers' reason for not firing Matt Canada right now seemingly is just, well, we don't do that. That's not the Pittsburgh Steelers way. We heard it with Randy Fichtner. We heard it with Todd Haley. We heard it with everybody. The Pittsburgh Steelers do not fire coordinators. That's not what they do. Not in the middle of a season. Not really at all. At this point, if you fired Matt Canada, you have like the integrity, you have missed the point completely. The integrity that you are trying to hold on to as an organization to say, we do not fire coordinators, we stick to this standard, is actually eating itself. It's no longer integrity. It is just blindness. And if you changed it, I think everybody looks at it the complete opposite way of what you feel as an organization they're going to look at it as. They're going to look at it, I think the Steelers, I think Art Rooney, I think Mike Tomlin, I think Omar Khan, I think the entire everybody there looks at it and goes, that's a failure. If we fire Matt Canada, we chalk it up as a failure. I think the fan base, I think the media, I think everybody involved on the outside of that organization will look at it as, wow, the Pittsburgh Steelers finally took a step forward, and this is a victory. Not a failure, it's a victory. You messed up, it is what it is. You move on. You were smart enough to put your integrity to the side, to put your pride to the side, and it works out in your favor. I think that the way they think we're all going to perceive it is the complete opposite of how we will actually perceive it from the outside, and I think that's where they stand. Steven, you think Kenny Pickett gets benched, or do you think that Matt Canada gets fired? What comes first?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, look, I've always kind of been of the thought that I'll believe it when I see it. As far as Matt Canada getting fired, like does not seem likely at all.
Yep.
So in that vein, like Kenny getting benched is probably much more likely, I mean, and that doesn't seem likely at all to me. That seems like that would be a really short-sighted move on my part, but I don't know, the lengths to which they've gone to defend Matt Canada, it's hard to imagine him getting fired anytime soon. I guess you could think about it this way. Kenny's probably not going to get benched this season, and Matt Canada could get fired at the end of the year. So I think that's really how it would happen. But no, I think about it in this way. Like, you are kind of attached to Kenny, I think, longer than you are attached to Matt Canada. So if you are going to make either one of those moves, I don't understand why benching Kenny would be the one that you would make. I don't see how that helps anyone.
Nick, sorry. Nick, you good?
Go ahead, Nick. Yeah. Yeah.
Nick, you got thoughts on this?
I mean, I just can't really see benching Kenny Pickett at this point. It just wouldn't make sense, because we know what Mitch Trubisky is. We understand what Mason Rudolph is. We didn't know what Josh Dobbs was, apparently, because he's balling in Arizona right now. And, I've said it before, but I just don't think this staff, no matter who was involved in the past of drafting quarterbacks, knew how to evaluate the situation, because I constantly saw Ben Roethlisberger stand up for a guy like Josh Dobbs, and Dobbs never got his opportunity at all in Pittsburgh. And it rubbed me the wrong way, and I didn't understand how Mason Rudolph was ahead of him for the longest time. It befuddles me, and I also think about the fact that they drafted Mason Rudolph in the 3rd round, and they could have had Lamar Jackson in the 1st round that year.
Yep.
Just decisions that baffle me to this day, and just makes me question their ability to evaluate quarterbacks.
Their ability to evaluate a lot of things. I mean, that's the biggest knock on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it has been on Mike Tomlin, but also, like, I think Omar Khan changed his tides a little bit, but Kevin Colbert near the end there was struggling a lot with that. But Mike Tomlin's biggest knock is, I mean, you stick with guys too long, and when it comes to evaluating these key positions, he struggles with a lot. He's great at finding TJ Watt. He'll go find TJ Watt all day long, but he can't find a quarterback, and he can't find a corner, and he struggles. Honestly, like, you could put it all up there and say he's found 2 wide receivers out of the dozen that he brought in, because all those guys, they worked out to a degree and then didn't work out. And I think you start adding that to the list too. Like Tomlin's overall trajectory of things definitely 100% has gone downhill.
I think there's also a belief that they are the Pittsburgh Steelers and they can develop anyone,
Yes.
like that they can make stars out of they can find the diamonds in the rough better than anyone else. And sometimes that's not true. Sometimes at premium positions, you have to use premium picks on them. Like you think about how Broderick Jones is the first time in over a year that they've drafted an offensive lineman, or in over 10 years, that they've drafted an offensive lineman in the first round. They just, I think, believe that they can develop anyone when that's not always true. You need superstars to be superstars, and you need that talent to be there from the jump.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's talk 2 rookies getting starters here before we head out. Darnell Washington and Broderick Jones, chances are they're going to start this week. Dan Moore's already been ruled out. But Pat Freiermuth is doubtful with a hamstring injury, expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, we'll start here, okay? The Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin used the fact that they went for it on 4th and 1 out of shotgun against the Houston Texans in a game that at that point was a 10-point game, could easily get back into, I mean, you kick a field goal and it's a 1-point game, but we don't have to talk about that one. You go for it on 4th and 1. You line up in shotgun. Kenny Pickett gets hurt. It's Kenny Pickett's fault he got hurt. He ran into that sack. I'll give that every time. But the excuse Mike Tomlin used yesterday was, well, James Daniels and Pat Freiermuth and Dan Moore Jr. were not on the field, and therefore we couldn't go big and we couldn't run the football. We had no confidence. I don't know if everybody remembers. Apparently, Mike Tomlin does not. He totally forgot that when he drafted Broderick Jones, he was known as a dominant run blocker, still struggling as a pass blocker. Totally forgot that one. Darnell Washington, I sat there in the draft room when the first question asked about this guy was, heard he was pretty much a left tackle. And then Alfredo Roberts went off and was just like, oh yeah, man, this guy could block a wall. You could block a train. And those 2 on the field, well, sorry, pal. Can't run the football with those 2 on the field. They're just too tiny compared to Pat Freiermuth, who has struggled all season long, and Dan Moore Jr., who has struggled all season long. That being said, those 2 will get the start this week. Your expectations, what are you looking for out of these 2 in their first starts in the NFL?
Line, and they're asking him to do a little bit too much, if you want my opinion on it, early on, for like just being asked as a blocker. But get him on the move, get him in front of linebackers, and I'm sure he's gonna want to he's gonna want to lay a guy out. Like he wants to do that, and why not do that with him? Like that's just something that they need to try and do more of. And Broderick Jones was a lot of the same way. Like when it came to him, he was a bit of a 2-hand striker with his punch and pass protection, which tends to leave him vulnerable to outside rushes. So he's definitely a guy who needs more work in pass protection. But I'll tell you this right now, he definitely didn't give up the sack that happened on 4th and 1. That was Kenny Pickett rolling himself into pressure. But I digress in that. But, Broderick Jones, get him on the move. Darnell Washington, get him on the move. That's how you use them as run blockers. It's really not rocket science with both of them. And I just think it's crazy. I like Dan Moore and Pat Freiermuth Pat Freiermuth is a good player, especially as a receiver. But as a blocker, he is very underwhelming in that regard. And I just think it is crazy to me that his injury is the reason you go out in 4th and 1 in shotgun formation. And yes, I know Kenny Pickett has the backside dig open and he scrambled out and he didn't see it, but give yourself more options. Make the defense like think more about it. Like under center in that situation, especially like the fact you were, Pickett was known as one of the best QB sneak guys in college, and the fact that they were running the ball so well that drive, it just made no sense to go away from that in that moment. Especially like I just don't get how Dan Moore and Pat Freiermuth going out affected that decision at all. That one baffled me way more than the padded practice one.
Yes, that one got me too. As soon as he said it, I went, "Do you know who your players are? Do you know anything about Pat Freiermuth? Have you watched him for 3 years? What are you doing?" All right, Steven, what are you looking for this weekend?
Well, quite honestly, like if they can't run the football with Darnell and Washington and Broderick Jones in there, they don't really have a hope of winning that game on Sunday. Which I think is the most concerning thing. I think that came out of. I mean, at least moving forward, the most concerning thing that came out of that press conference from Mike Tomlin is that if they don't trust these guys to be physical at the point of the attack and help them run the ball, that's really, really concerning. So that's what I'm looking for is like, how much do they trust these guys? Are they going to run to their side at all? Like, are they going to use, Darnell and Broderick to clear the way for Najee or Jalen? That's what I'm looking for. I think the pass protection is going to be the pass protection. It's not going to be very good. And that's just going to happen. I think that's a given. But will they be able to run the ball? Will Najee have the same kind of game? Because he had a good game against Houston. He played really well. Which again, feeds the weird decision on 4th and 1. Why you took your guy who was having his best game out of the biggest play of the game. That was a little weird to me as well. But yeah, that's what I'm looking for is how much do they trust these guys in this spot? Are they actually confident in these guys, or is this a look, we got to throw you in now?
Yeah, I will say I don't have much faith that they're going to have faith in these guys. I think that they're going to try to avoid them at all costs. But I think it's going to pay. It's going to pay dividends. It's going to bite them in the butt. I think that they're going to do a lot of really poor moves, like run the ball to Chooks' side and try to work that side of the field. And I mean, I could even see. I wouldn't even doubt it if Connor Hayward lines up as an inline blocker and they run the football to his side. I really wouldn't. I just wouldn't. That's where we are with the Pittsburgh Steelers and their offense. But I agree. I think you have to show faith in them. I think what I'm looking for is I could care less if Darnell Washington catches a football. Could care less. I just want to see him block anybody. I want to see him block linebackers. I want to see him block at the second level. I want to see Broderick Jones be athletic because he's way more athletic than Dan Moore Jr. Utilize it. You got Isaac Seumalo next to him, who's for as scary and big as he is, he can move. He comes from an offensive line where they moved a lot. Like, you can move. Stop using Mason Cole as your athletic guy and start to use your actual athletic guys. And maybe things will work. But again, like I said, I have no faith that is actually going to happen. We'll find out on Sunday, but we'll see. With that said, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk, and find us anywhere you get your podcast. Nick just dropped a fantastic film review on allsteelers.com. Make sure to go check that one out and find all of our pick coverage at InsideThePanthers.com. We will be back on Friday. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.